Fee Hills here from My Nudger AI, and I'm here today with the lovely Mike Harsanyi, who is also co-founder in My Nudger AI and an innovator like no one I've ever met. Now, Mike is an incredibly inspiring individual and a career full of unique accomplishments. Today, I'm going to talk to Mike about something that he calls cognitive infection. This definition of cognitive infection, it doesn't sound very nice for obvious reasons, Mike. So share with us, what is a cognitive infection and why is it so important that we share this information today?
Thank you, Fee, for having me here. It's good to be back. Cognitive infection, it is an ugly thing. There's nothing nice about it. It is devastating. It is horrible for each one of us. What it is trying to describe is how the mind can corrupt data and corrupt information. What happens is that if we base our decisions on things that are just not true, then our decisions are not going to be so good, and the results are not going to be so good, and our life is going to be somewhat worse. So what the cognitive infection describes is how that is actually not just an isolated incident, but actually this is very common. Indeed, it is impossible to be free of this cognitive infection at the moment. The brain stores information through neurons and their connections. Now, the brain doesn't know whether these connections are right or wrong. It just makes a good guess whether they work or whether they don't. And based on the feedback from the world, when the brain gets real useful feedback, then it can kind of correct it and make the connections so that it resembles truth. However, if the brain does not get real, instant and really good high quality level feedback, then it will just stay with whatever connections were built in the first place. So in that sense, very random connections are built. For example, if I tell you my middle name is Peter, you have no reason to doubt me. So you would remember, your brain would remember Mike's middle name is Peter, but actually it is not true. My middle name is Adam. So, but still, already you have a corrupt piece of data. You've done nothing wrong, but still it's already there. And this is what happens. Now, it's very easy to pick those up, but when it comes to the decisions, you meet someone else who's called, let's say, Mike Peter. You say, oh, I know a guy who's also called Mike Peter. But that would not be true, because actually it would be a Miklos Adam. In my case, if we want to go with the certificate or birth certificate. So what I'm saying is, and this is just a quick example, but we have millions of those, and some of these come from ancient times. Tens of thousands of generations ago they started, and they just kept on. Every generation taught the next generation, well, this is how the world works. Son, come here. Daughter, come here. This is what's happening, and so on and so on. So it is kind of, we infect the next generation with our beliefs, with our biases, and so on and so on. And then globally, this is actually a huge cognitive infection. And the only trouble is that we base our decisions on these corrupt data, these corrupt connections. So we teach our children, I teach my children, but it's just not true. So whenever they're going to build their life, and when it comes to a bad result, we just say, oh, well, that's life, and we just say that. But actually, that's not true. We just don't have the good understanding of life because we are full of corrupt connections and corruptly changed neurons. And the big question is, how do we get rid of that? So how can we swap those corrupt, quite damaging knowledge, if you want, beliefs, biases, to something that would actually benefit us and would lead us to better decisions and a better life?
Why is it important to deal with this cognitive infection now more than ever?
It would have been always extremely important. However, now we have come to a time when things are happening so fast. We are so powerful with our technology, and we are so numerous with our 8 billion population of 8 billion people, that suddenly every little thing we do has extreme consequences. The world is spinning out of control. So unless we kind of become more precise and higher quality with our decisions, so that we come to better decisions, then we are heading for disaster. Just like if you can drive a car slowly, in a parking lot, that's fine. The worst thing that could happen that you drive into another car, and that's you have to pay for the damages. But if you do the exact same thing on the motorway at high speed, you could easily die from the exact same mistake. So this is what's happening in society. So I mean, it was devastating even up till now. Most of the wars started because of the cognitive infection, but now we might not have another chance if we continue like this, and we build the world based on these corrupt data sets of neurons, whatever. And the reason it is infection because we keep infecting each other. So, for example, let's assume I have a huge misunderstanding about the world, and then I create an online social platform, and inherently, the way I build that platform and the way it kind of operates, it has that kind of misunderstanding in the platform. So in a way, when people come up there and I decide what kind of information I want to share with people, my judgment is already affected by my own cognitive untruths, if you want. And then I infect others because they will say, oh, okay, well, and they pick it up. This is how we infect our children. We don't want to, but we can't help because we don't know any better. We don't know any different. This is why. And it's infectious because we can infect each other. Biases could be a typical example, but there's so much more than just biases. Fundamental misunderstandings about the world, life, and everything else. And it doesn't have to be. It's not just that our mind is not capable of handling the truth. Actually, it is, but it just doesn't know. It doesn't handle the truth. It thinks it does, but it doesn't, because some of it is just untrue. Now, this is why it is so devastating, because when you build your decision, if you build your decisions on facts, knowledge, which are untrue, then your decisions by definition are going to be off, because that's not what you expected. When we build a decision, we always predict what's going to happen. Now, if you build it something which is corrupt, then our predictions are wrong. But we aim for that future. I want to get there, so I have to do this. But because of the fundamentals on which I build the decisions are wrong, my aim is wrong. And that is why very likely we come up with bad results. And we will blame the world, we will blame everything, that, oh, this is just life, and so on and so on. But actually, what is to blame is our understanding and knowledge of the world. We could get rid of most of the misconceptions and misbeliefs if we wanted to, but it takes conscious effort and a lot of work.
How much of what we know is truth versus infected beliefs or untrue?
I can give you a subjective figure. I would say 90 to 95% of what we know of the world is just untrue. It is based on misconceptions, these beliefs, and it is all wrong. And actually, we could know. It could be the opposite way, the other way around. It could be, that what we know, whatever that is, could be 90-95% true, and that would lead to very different decisions in our lives, very, very different choices, and that would lead to much, much, much better lives. No one's planning for an awful life. No one's everybody's planning for the best life possible. The reason why we can't have it, because when we make our choices, we don't have enough good data to build our decisions. So this is where it is fundamentally important to have as good as understanding of the world as possible. But what we know about the world, usually we learn it from other people who has already been infected, and it goes back to tens of thousands of generations, so nothing new here. But we just assume, this is what my grandfather thought, this is what my grandfather's grandfather thought, and so on and so on. So we never question it, because why would we? And then we just say, well, when things turn south, we just say, okay, well, this was to be expected. This is just life, which is true in some cases, but I think in most cases it is not. Actually, we could aim for a much better life and a much better future. We just don't have the knowledge for it. And it's not that you just read a book and suddenly you will find great uninfected knowledge, because the books themselves are quite infected. We have always been infected. It's just misunderstandings. Could be from slight little misunderstandings. It seemed harmless enough, so it stayed with us. And these assumptions are dangerous.
As we move into the AI world, how important is it that we now get rid of this cognitive infection that it seems to be getting worse, not better, and yet we're moving into the AI world where we need to make ethical decisions, make more philosophical decisions, that we're really making decisions and sharing truths that are actually not serving us? Talk to that.
Well, one way, obviously, this is a little bit hypothetical, but because we train ChatGPT and the rest on the information that we can find on the internet and all over, which is hugely infected from the cognitive infections point of view. So in a way, how would AI know the difference? It has never ever experienced anything else. So now we train AI based on that. So actually, if anything, will make the infection even worse, because we will hear from an authority and we train it based on a hugely infected data set. But if we wanted to get better quality AI, we would have to train it on less infected data sets.
I was listening to a podcast, which was really good one, actually. I would name it, but I just can't remember it, which I feel bad about. But the guy was saying, we are the parents of AI, and parents have to bring their children up like properly, like ethically, like with values. And he was making the point that we're not doing that. We're not helping matters at the moment, are we, really? From what you're saying.
Absolutely, and it is even worse, because when we are parents, most people believe that they will have to do a good job bringing up their children. With AI, it's almost the other way around. We look to AI to get us out of this trouble. We say, look, I tell you what I know, and then you work it out and you come up with a better solution than I could possibly. That's wrong on so many levels, but still, yeah, absolutely. If we let's assume we wanted to, which I'm not sure we do, but if we wanted to bring up a great new fantastic generation of AI, then it would be a bad idea to train it on infected data. No, we should do our best to disinfect this data, then train AI on that. Otherwise, it will be just an extension of our wrong decisions. It could be, like wrong decisions on steroids, if you want.
So we've just given steroids, as you say, to this AI to scale the untruths that have been in there for however many thousands of years, that have built up and then is shared in data sets around the internet for all humans. It's madness.
Well, it is. I mean, if you listen to the language, I mean, already we hear this kind of talk that, look, oh, wow, AI is already so much better than us. It has read all the books in the world, and so on and so on. Oh my God, I could never read all the books in every language, and so on. And that in our minds kind of creates this image that AI is, I don't know, in some way has superior knowledge to us. So it becomes the authority. So if the AI says, well, look, according to my studies and to my research, this is the truth, we will take it as face value and we say, well, you are brighter than I am, you know better, you read more books than I am, so there you are, there's the truth. But actually the AI got all that from us. If there is any amount of infection, which I claim there is a lot, but if there's any amount of infection there, then we have already corrupted AI's data and knowledge and information. So whatever comes out of the AI's mouth will be hugely corrupted and based on our own interpretations and ideas. Well, the only problem is that we keep talking about intelligence, but I think it's a dangerous word, because when we say intelligence, probably we mean something to do with the mind. Now, when we talk about the mind, it is yet again it's quite dangerous, because to understand the mind, we would have to understand what the purpose of the mind is. And if we do not understand the purpose of the mind, how would we understand why the mind behaves the way it does? So then the next question would be, okay, the mind is there, so it has to serve a purpose. It doesn't just come about like this. And then really just look at whatever the mind does from the purpose's point of view. On another occasion, we could really go through that, because I think that's amazing once we start thinking about what is the purpose of the mind and why it is there in the first place, because that suddenly sheds a light on so many things why the mind works exactly the way it does. Now, the problem is, if we do not understand this, then how could we understand the purpose of the AI mind? And then how do we know that the AI mind actually serving its purpose or not? If we do not understand our own mind and its own purpose, how on earth could we understand any other life forms or AI's mind if we do not even understand ours? It's so easy to say intelligence, but it would be really, really difficult to come up with a definition that would really fit all the different kind of meanings and connotations of intelligence and the mind and everything else. And it's so easy to say, okay, well, it's an intelligent AI and it comes to decisions and so on, without really understanding what a decision is and why decisions are important. Why do we need decisions in the first place?
What has to happen now to help us diminish the impact of this infection and, if possible, get rid of it as much as we can?
Well, the first step is when we recognize the infection in ourselves. It's quite easy, actually, when we go around about our day. If we just ask, what is it that we actually know for sure? What is it that we assume? And what is it that, okay, I don't even believe in it, however I do this? It could be, we might find biases, we might find misunderstandings, we might spot this in ourselves, and it's even easier to spot it in others. We do it in our sprints. We ask people to spot when someone's making an assumption like, where did you go on holiday this summer? Already we are assuming that the other went on a holiday. That's already an assumption. And when we spot this, then we already know that, okay, those assumptions may or may not be founded in truth and reality. Now, once we recognize that so much of what we believe about this world is just based on assumptions, like, to give you a very painful one, I believe in atoms, I believe in molecules and everything else, but I have never seen an atom, even though I have been testing atoms and been doing research and stuff with atoms, but I've never seen an atom. So I just have to assume that atoms are, in a way, there, if you see what I mean. So that's an assumption. I'm not saying that atoms are not there, or I'm saying that I have to accept that it's an assumption on my side. Make it even worse, I've never been to the United States. So yes, I've seen it in movies. I've met people who told me they were there, but I have actually never set foot on the continent on which the United States, is positioned. So in a way, I just assume that everything is true about what I know the United States. Yet again, I'm not saying it doesn't exist. All I'm saying that I have to be aware that it's an assumption. I assume it's there. Now, once we recognize that, actually, pretty soon we'll start to see assumptions which are not as well, founded on truth as atoms and the United States, but actually it is just not true. So many of them don't even know where to start. Once you start spotting them, you will see that actually a horrendous number of things that we go about our day and see and assume is just not there. It is just false.
Talk to me about how your work with the AI concept pyramid, as an example. I know it's just one part of your work. How can that help to get rid of this cognitive infection? For example, what's its role in helping with this?
Well, that's a brilliant question. We can train AI, and we can tell AI to create certain situations, and through these situations we can test our own mind, whether we take it as reality or not, whether we think it is true or not. And this way we can teach ourselves, train ourselves in a way to become more aware of the problem and start the cleansing process, so that we start getting rid of the worst untruths in our minds. It could be a bias, it could be a misconception, it could be a misunderstanding, whatever. But once we start the process, and I've seen it with so many people, once the process is started, you start to see the truth. You start to say, okay, well, I really have to work on that. And you will soon enough find that you will come to better decisions, because then you say, okay, well, actually, that may or may not be true, so let me check first. And then you check first, and then you come up with a better decision, because you realized, okay, I was building this decision on an assumption, but coming to think of that, actually, why do I even assume it is true? So maybe I just ask, maybe I just check it. And then suddenly, your decisions become better. Oh, I didn't know it was. Oh, okay then. Okay, I'll tell you what, then we should do something different. Suddenly you realize what reality is, or something closer to reality is, and then you come up with a better decision. And this is what the AI can help. It can put you into situations when in a way you are challenged, in a way that you pick up this skill, and then after that you can just in a way start the cleansing process yourself and continue the cleansing process yourself. It's always you who will have to decide. The AI will not decide for you. It will just give you the skills so that you can have the power to decide.
So it's like raising your self-awareness about a particular concept, as an example. So you might have 100 concepts in a subject, or 1 million concepts, whatever the number may be. And if you're misunderstanding some of these concepts, the AI is then helping you become less ignorant about that. And when I say ignorant, I use that word carefully, because obviously it means Latin to ignore. And it's not about being stupid, it is about being unaware about something. So when we become aware about something, we can do something about it. The AI, like the concept pyramid, is helping us do that in concept by concept. Is that correct?
More or less, absolutely. And you mentioned two words: self-awareness and ignorance. Oh, and the third one, in a way, stupidity. And I think, yes, exactly. The higher your self-awareness is, the easier it is to get rid of your own ignorance, and yet again then to get rid of your stupidity. In my belief, most people actually are quite intelligent, much more intelligent than they kind of happen to be. And most of the stupidity, in my mind, is just caused by the cognition infection. And most of the ignorance is just caused by cognitive infection. Had they been given a chance to cleanse their knowledge, to become more self-aware and put the misunderstandings and misconcepts right, probably they would be substantially more intelligent and come to much better decisions. I think this is just a short introduction to this notion, if you want, and mindset that I think is quite important to recognize and do something about.
You can find Mike Harsanyi on LinkedIn. Should you have any particular questions about this or anything, AI, anything about MindNudger. But just to also say, MindNudger is now open, isn't it, Mike? And we're very, very proud of the work we're doing. We're already working on pilots with clients. Where it's going to be next year, and Mike keeps telling me this about the AI and the AI concept pyramid and everything, is going to be amazing. And I, for one, can't wait.
Thank you for having me today and even in the future.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Fee.